and let you know kind of how the webinar rolls, and then we'll get things going. So the webinar will probably run about 45 minutes tops with questions. I go pretty fast, so grab your pencils and hang on. You can write down questions and type them into the chat panel at any time you want, and we'll do Q&A at the end. The presentation's in two main parts. The first part of the presentation is HomeFundIt, the program itself, how it works, really from a consumer standpoint. So you kind of get to see it from how your buyer will see it. And then the second part of the presentation is the 6 strategies that people are using to grow their business using HomeFundIt. They're exciting to go through because I'm sure that at least one of those strategies is a strategy that you're going to want to employ to grow your business in 2025 and beyond using this program. Okay, a little bit of administrative detail is done, and let's get rolling here. So we also have a lot of guests on the call. So I like to do a little bit of CMG overview. Company was founded in 1993 by Chris George. He's our president and CEO. He was recently, I think, the 2018-2019 chairman of the MBA. I joined the company in 2003, so I've seen the growth of our organization. When I joined, we had 2 branches that were local to our headquarters. We now have branches coast to coast. We're a top lender, number 6 retail lender. I think we have more programs, I think 930 loan programs in counting, when you kind of divide them all out. The all-in-one loan proprietary program, it's really actually the reason I came to CMG was to kind of help Chris build that program. If you're not familiar with it, make sure you get familiar with it. Check in with Dave Herbst, who kind of owns that program now. It really will change the way you think about mortgages and your money forever. It's the loan you're going to want on your house. And HomeFundIt, which is what we're here to talk about today. HomeFundIt fits into our overall stable of fair lending products, our down payment assistance programs for first-time buyers, low-income buyers, underserved communities, and generally anybody who could use a bigger down payment, which, by the way, is every first-time buyer. So that's why we're going to talk about HomeFundIt today. There are 3 things to keep in mind with HomeFundIt. And really the first thing is the lowest layer of HomeFundIt, and that's the foundational layer, is really why we built HomeFundIt, and that's to help people build a bigger down payment. But along the way, what we found out is that HomeFundIt is really good at holding on to buyers who aren't ready to go yet, which is pretty cool when you think about it, because we spend all our time fighting over the buyers that we think are ready to go, and we sort of miss the forest for the trees. There's tons of them out there who aren't ready to go, but most loan officers and real estate agents kind of don't really know what to do with those folks until they're ready to go. The cool thing about HomeFundIt is it allows you to start working with people in a meaningful way, people who aren't ready to go, but would make good homeowners someday, and put them in your pipeline today. So we're going to talk a lot about how that works. And then sort of the icing on the cake with HomeFundIt is once they do buy a home, you end up with more downstream referrals because of the way HomeFundIt is structured. So those are the 3 layers to HomeFundIt, and we're going to touch on all those multiple times as we go through today. So let's start by talking about first-time home buyers, and everybody knows the deal. We have high home prices still. They're staying nice and high and not coming down really. So it's no break for first-time home buyers coming. Rising rents, we see that routinely, and now I'm just reading an article this morning about algorithm-driven rent collusion, and that's pretty not exciting if you're a renter. And student debt, credit card debt, things that slow down your ability to save up for a down payment. When you talk to renters, most of them will tell you that the down payment's the #1 hurdle. For you guys, looking out at the playing field of buyers and prospective buyers, you want to divide them up into 2 groups, really. There are prospective buyers who are on the sidelines, people who would like to own a home, who will make good homeowners, just not right now. And then there's current buyers, the folks that are in the market today. Typically, that's around 4 million per year in terms of the number of transactions we see out there. And those are buyers who we are all fighting over, trying to win market share for those. Yet, most of us lose sight of the prospective buyers, which is kind of the hidden market out there. Freddie Mac has done some studying about what a prospective buyer might look like, or someone who's ready to take on a mortgage, obviously, because they're in the mortgage business with all of us. And they went out and looked at what they call mortgage-ready prospective buyers, people who don't have a mortgage, right? They're 40 years of old or younger. They have a FICO score of 620 or higher, which theoretically means conventional or better, DTI of 25 or lower, and no blemishes on their credit record. So they could pay a mortgage, theoretically. But for the fact that most of them don't have a down payment together yet, or they have other things going on in their life. So if you can help those people become ready to buy a home by helping them with their down payment, you're going to move more of them from the left side of the picture to the right side of the picture. And if you can do it in such a way as to hold them in your pipeline, you're going to do more business next year. So that's our goal here today, is to kind of talk about how do they come up with a bigger down payment. Well, today, short of getting a raise or winning the lottery, there's really only one legit way to come up with more money for a down payment, and that's down payment gifting. The problem with down payment gifting is we only see it happening in about 25% of cases, 23% of cases. That number kind of has dropped a lot because first-time buyer share is down to a record low 24% right now. And even though under Fannie, Freddie, FHA guidelines, other relatives can help with the down payment by gifting, but they never get asked, and we know the reason, right? It's a pain. You have to chase down paper checks. There's gift letters. There's sourcing rules. Sometimes you need financial statements. The whole process is cumbersome. And when you think about the timing of down payment gifting, when that action actually occurs, when they learn how to do down payment gifting, it's when they're sitting across the table from a loan officer filling out a loan application or online. And the loan officer says, where's the down payment coming from? And you say, well, we saved forever and mom and dad are going to help a little bit. But again, under Fannie, Freddie, FHA guidelines, other relatives can help, but it happens so late, the buyer doesn't have time to go back out and go through this friction-laden process to make it work. So we said, hey, let's fix that. Let's move this whole process online like we do everything else today, and do it with a debit card or credit card, no offline paperwork. And that makes it easier for all of those relatives to be able to help. And then we said, hey, why would we stop at just relatives? Let's figure out a way so that anyone can give. So they don't have to worry about who can give and who can't give. And that opens up the playing field to friends, cousins, teammates, coworkers, wedding guests. Anybody can give, of course, except the interested parties like borrower, LO, agent. Anybody can give up to $5,000 per donor, no maximum on how much you can raise on the campaign. There's no commissions or hidden costs. We cover all of the costs of operating the platform. That means 100% of what you bring in goes through to the transaction. And this is a big one, no time limits. Shortest bullet point, so don't miss it. It's the most important one. You can start these as early as you want. You do not need to have a loan file in place. You don't need to be pre-qualified. You don't need to have good credit. You don't need to be 18. You just need to have a computer and want to buy a house someday. That's the bar for getting into HomeFundIt. So very low bar to put somebody in your pipeline when you think about it, right? Start them early, right? Gives them more time to come up with money. And we'll talk about that a lot as we go through. And HomeFundIt works with any loan program, companies, any loan program, except for HFA bond programs. So it works with all your conventional Home Possible and Home Ready 3% down payment programs. It works with FHA, VA, USDA, jumbo, all-in-one, renovation, non-QM, you name it. Works with all of our programs except for bond programs. Boil this thing down to an elevator pitch. Really easy to remember this. We've moved the process online, and we've opened up the playing field where anyone can gift. Online down payment gifting from anyone. And that's a big change for your buyer. In fact, a lot of times you need to kind of explain to your buyer what that really means, right? That we've moved this process online. The old system is paper-based, and you don't have to worry about who can give and who can't give. With that power, your buyer can go out and make some really interesting things happen. They just go through a few simple setup screens, and presto, they've got a page on the web where their family and their friends can help out with the down payment. The pages look like everything: family, friends, dogs, cats, graduations, weddings, you name it. We've seen it all. They can customize that picture, title of their campaign. There's a nice little default story that allows them to tell their story, or they can use the modify. They can modify or use the one we give them. Loan officer and real estate agent are both featured on the campaign page. Upper right-hand corner is where people donate to a campaign. And it's really easy, super easy process. And Up-It is a second way to add funds to a campaign. You can kind of get a sense for what that looks like right there. I'll show you more about that in a second. And in the bottom right, you can see where all the gifts are coming in. We match those gifts 2-to-1 up to the lesser of 2,000 or 1% of purchase price. Most houses are above 200,000, so most people are hitting the 2,000 really easily. We apply that as a lender credit at closing, so you got your gift money over here in the campaign, and then when you close, most people are hitting that 2,000. Now, there's two requirements for HomeFundIt, two very important requirements. One, and this is really important, to use HomeFundIt, regardless, to use HomeFundIt, you have to do home buyer ed prior to signing a purchase contract. Prior to signing a purchase contract, if you're already under contract, sorry, too late. Do not pass go, do not collect 2,000, can't use the program. So make sure they get it done before contract. By the way, LOs, a little tip, make sure your buyer understands what that means. If you just tell them you got to do home buyer ed, my guess is that a bunch of them will probably go out, they'll get under contract, and then they'll go, oh, got to do home buyer ed, and then it's too late, and they just lost 2,000 and you're on the hot seat. So make sure they understand that it has to happen before contract, and make sure they do it. It's really important, and we've seen too many where it's just been sort of tossed over to them, and the buyer, of course, doesn't know. They make the mistake. We have a free 1 hour over the phone based system with GreenPath, Monday through Friday, business hours. Couldn't be easier. It gets it done in 1 hour. So it's really, really easy. They can get to it right from the campaign dashboard. If they want to do a HUD approved online course, that's cool also. It has to be HUD approved, but Fannie, Freddie, Framework, a bunch of those, sometimes those cost money, but they can do it on Saturday night at 3 a.m. That's okay. If they want to do the online course, it has to be HUD approved. So make sure you check before you roll them into one of those. And then second requirement is to get the 2,000. You got to be a first-time buyer. We use the one borrower 3-year Fannie Mae rule. So only one person has to be a first-time buyer, but we need one first-time buyer, and then they get to 2,000. Now, you can be a move-up buyer and use the platform. We have probably every month at least a few move-up buyers that are crowdfunding from family and friends, divorce, disaster. We've had some wildfire campaigns here in California that are move-up buyers. So just depends. We don't see a lot of them. Generally, down payment gifting is kind of a first-time buyer thing, but we do see a move-up buyer now and then. Make sure you are stacking the HomeFundIt 2,000 with Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae's grants. If your buyer makes less than 50% of the area median income, they can stack in another $2,500 from Fannie and Freddie using Home Possible and Home Ready. And if they're between 50 and 80%, you want to make sure that you're checking out Borrow Smart from Freddie Mac. That's a free $1,250 sitting on top of the 2,000. So a lot of closing cost dollars there when you stack these together, plus gift money. And in many cases, we're seeing the 3% loan, down payment loan to go with it. UpIt, second way to add funds to a campaign. You do that simply by shopping. We work with about 1,000 online retailers. Each one of them rebates a certain percentage of what got spent back to the down payment as a pledge at closing. Anybody can shop using UpIt, so they just click in from the campaign page. We work with all these great retailers that you know and love. I like to call out Home Depot, one of my favorite stores, 8% back to the down payment. And let's make it even better. We match those rebates 2-to-1, just like we matched the gift money coming in 2-to-1 towards that $2,000 lender credit. So think of it as a second way to get to that lender credit. We've got a nice little Chrome extension that you can install in your Chrome browser. All your family and friends can install that. And if they forget to go to the campaign page first and click into the stores from there, which is what links that transaction to the rebate to your campaign, it pops up automatically if you have the Chrome extension, and does the linking automatically, even if you forgot to go to the campaign page. So make sure your buyer has all their family and friends install that, and that can add some serious dollars to their campaign. Third way to get to the 2,000 is by sharing your campaign on social. And we give you $10 every time you share your campaign on Facebook, X, or LinkedIn. Got to update this slide. And if the friend comes in and shares the campaign page, they can generate an additional $10 every time too. So think of it as a third way to get to that $2,000. When they set up their campaign, they get a nice little campaign dashboard, which lets them control their campaign. So they go in here and they can change their picture and their story. They can start home buyer ed from here. If they've already had their campaign running, when they're ready, they can start a pre-qual. They'll go right to you from here. Loan officer and real estate agent are both featured on the campaign page, and they can track the whole thing right from here. Now, little administrative details. There are 2 tracks for HomeFundIt. the Freddie Mac track and the Fannie Mae track. I'm going to do the non-Freddie, Fannie, FHA, VA track first. So any loans except for Freddie Mac loans, we do require seasoning on the gift funds. That means you need to start early, get the funds raised, get them in the buyer's bank account so they can set up their campaign. Of course, they can run it as long as they want. They can do up it as long as they want as well. Fundraising usually runs 4 to 12 weeks from the time they start talking to family and friends and from the time the funds actually are all in. And make sure they get their home buyer ad done before they get out there and start house hunting. Really important on the timeline. And then, of course, they want to get their funds into their bank so they can season in their bank account. And there's an ACH button on their campaign dashboard. They dump their funds into their bank account, and the funds start to season at that point. How long is seasoning? Typically 2 bank statements, right? You want 2 clean bank statements you turn in with all of your paperwork. We do the underwriting, and you want to make sure that that ACH transfer happens before that so that those funds are effectively buyer funds at that point in time. So they can do all the fundraising they want, make sure the funds get in there in season. Then they're going to close, they're going to get their $2,000, their up at rebate funds, and they're done. Now, if your buyer doesn't have time to season those funds, you cannot use unseasoned funds in a transaction. The money's coming in from CMG. That's not okay because there's no way to source that. The underwriter can't look back up the chain and say, you know, grandpa gave that money because it's a deposit coming in from CMG. So what people do, if they can't season those funds, is they save the money until afterwards, and they just pull the funds afterwards via ACH, same process. They just refill their bank account at the end after they've closed. Use the funds for all those expenses that they have after they buy a house, which, as you guys know, are a lot of expenses. So you have 2 choices. You can season and use the funds in the transaction, or you can save and use the funds after the transaction. Either way, you just cannot use unseasoned funds in the middle of the transaction because it'll blow it up. Now with Freddie Mac, no seasonings required. We get a special variance with these guys. You can run your campaigns as long as you want. Make sure you get your home buyer ad done before you get into contract. And at the end, when you close, the gift funds are automatically wired at closing to title, and you're done. Couldn't be easier, and you can fundraise right down to the wire. You don't have to worry about seasoning. Freddie Mac has given us a pretty sweet variance on this so that we can just make these really, really easy. Program stats to date, I think we're at about 2,600 and something now in terms of the number of campaigns. We see all different sizes of gifts, all different types of borrowers and purchases. Median donations probably around 500, although we see a lot of small donations and we see a lot of $5,000 donations. So it just depends on your network. Top 10 campaigns. We've seen some very large ones. What I would say the sweet spot campaign is 5 to 15,000, 5 to 15 donors. Good looking, well shared campaigns almost always go right into here. You have to have a good picture and you have to tell somebody. We can see that's happening on our side, and when we see that, we know these campaigns are going to raise funds. They almost always do. This is a great example. Couple had gotten married. They found out about HomeFundIt after, when they did the traditional house hunting thing after, and they were pretty sure that only their parents were going to give. We have this on video actually, but their family, their friends, people who came to their wedding. We had 13 people give to the campaign, almost $11,000, just a couple weekends. And they were in their homes sooner, stronger. And the important thing for you as a loan officer, as a real estate agent, is those 13 people who give to the campaign. And that takes us to the icing on the cake, which is what we call the HomeFundIt network effect. In a traditional home purchase, you have a limited number of people who are really involved in the transaction, right? The buyer, the seller, and the LO, and the real estate agent. And you're hoping you're going to get some referral value from the group, right? Which is the buyer, basically. With HomeFundIt, your buyer is surrounded by all their family and friends who are helping them with their down payment, who see the loan officer and the real estate agent on the campaign page or part of that transaction. They're helping their friend buy a house, helping them with that down payment with this cool thing called HomeFundIt. And they go out and they talk to all their family and friends. And the next thing you know, you're having referrals coming in from some of those donors. The key here is to start early enough to let your buyer assemble that donor network. If you jam your buyer in the last 30 days, I guarantee you're going to get one gift from mom and dad that you would have got on paper before, right? Because they don't have the time to go out and talk to all these people. So when you think about it, the cool thing to do here is to start early, right? Start people before they're ready to start shopping for a home, maybe even before they're ready to get pre-qualified. They're just dreaming about a home. That's the perfect time to talk about HomeFundIt because it lets them have time to work on their down payment. They can talk to their family and friends. They can whip out their phone when they're at the backyard barbecue and show everybody this thing called HomeFundIt that they're doing. They don't even have to ask for money. People know. They get it. My lender is matching me 2-to-1. Oh, I'll give you some money. And that's how that works. But it takes time, right? Think about your world. How many times do you interact with all your family and friends in the real world, right? You don't see all of them all the time. You might see your closest family at home all the time, but they were going to help you anyway, right? How often do you see the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, your friends, your old college roommates, the people you hang out with and go to sports events with or play sports with, right? You don't interact with those people all the time, and it's not like you're going to go chase them down and ask them for money. You have to have time to comfortably work those people into your life, and so does your buyer, right? So start early, give your buyer the time to comfortably work HomeFundIt into their life, encourage them to talk about it, to bring it up, to show people what they're doing on the phone and, show them the campaign page, tell them that the lender's matching 2-to-1. That's the key thing with HomeFundIt, is to give your buyer the time to do that. And to make sure that those referrals flow in, what we do is we go back out after the sale and we market to those folks. We have 4 waves of nurture marketing that goes out to the donors with a letter, a really nice letter that says, thanks a lot. Believe it or not, it's been a full year since we've purchased our home and we couldn't have done it without you. Thanks again for helping with our down payment. By the way, if you know anybody else who would like to use a program like HomeFundIt, here's the loan officer and the real estate agent that brought it to us. So we market you to the donors, right? And these are people who would not have been in the transaction before, after the sale for a full year, right? To make sure that those referrals have the highest potential of coming into you. So rule number 1, start early so your buyer has time to put that donor network in place, and then encourage them to go out and talk to those folks and have them help. Now, will they help? Absolutely will help. Think about when you graduated from high school or college. You sent out a graduation announcement to a whole group of people in your life, right, that were important to you. What happened when you did that? Of course, people sent you gifts and money and stuff like that. When you got married, you sent out a wedding invitation to a whole group of people, that same group, right? What happened when you did that? Well, people sent you gifts and came to your wedding, and some of them flew across the country to be at your wedding, right? So there's a group of people, small, large, in everybody's life, right, that they can reach out to, and those people will step up and help. They almost don't even need to be asked. They know the deal, especially when they hear a lender is matching 2-to-1, they're going to want to help. So drive those referrals by letting your buyer have the time to make that happen. Okay, part 2 of the presentation is our 6 business building strategies. Number 1, and this is one that everybody can pretty much do, realtor portals. So if you're a referral partner of ours, you're a real estate agent, loan officers, if you have real estate agents you're working with, make sure that they have an opportunity to set up a realtor portal. Go to realtor.homefundit.com. It takes about 5 minutes tops. All you need is a picture and a logo, and you've got a self-contained marketing platform to start people on a HomeFundIt campaign. It's got nurture marketing tools built into it every single week for long-range campaigns. It's got video marketing tools. It's got social media stuff, and I'll show you all that stuff here as we get going. It's got real estate agents branding on it. It's got picture and contact information for the real estate agent. It's got a big green button where your buyer is going to start a HomeFundIt campaign, and that's going to be co-branded to both the loan officer and the real estate agent. Ask a question panel so that if they have a question, it goes right back to the realtor. It's got video that explains how the HomeFundIt program works. It's got a showcase that as you get campaigns up and running, they populate into your portal and people can come in and check them out and click right into those campaigns because those are live links into those campaigns. So even after they're closed, you can showcase them to your future buyers. Now, if you're in one of the 40 states that allows you to help with closing costs, and you would know if you were, you're able to help with closing costs, you can do a dollar-for-dollar pledge towards closing costs up to any cap that you want. And it's handled at closing just the same way you'd help with some closing costs today at closing. What you're doing is you're just incentivizing your buyer to go out and raise some dollars. So anytime they raise some money up to your cap, they're getting a dollar-for-dollar pledge. And look right here, you can see you're getting a little free publicity right on the campaign page. And guaranteed, when someone makes a donation, they go around and check to make sure it shows up on the campaign page. And what they're going to see is your matching pledge right below it. So free publicity. But there's an even better reason to do this. And I highly recommend you do these real estate agent matches because it gives your buyer leverage. So in addition to our 2-to-1 match, that makes it a 3-to-1 match. So your buyer can now go out to their family and friends and say, hey, my lender's matching me 2-to-1. The real estate agent is matching 1-to-1. So I get a total 3-to-1 on any money I raise on this platform. And it just increases the odds that their family or friends are going to help out when they hear about that. And what is that doing for you? Remember what we were just talking about? Referral value. Every time there's a new donor here, that's someone else that you can market to, that's somebody you're bringing into that transaction. So I highly recommend you do one of these matches. It doesn't need to be a lot of money, but it certainly can have a huge value. Imagine you do a dollar for dollar match up to $500 and end up with 3 or 4 new clients that you would not have gotten had you done a traditional transaction. So it's a very, very powerful tool to give your buyer increased leverage in building a bigger donor network. Marketing Center, inside your portal, you'll be able to download social graphics that you can share and testimonial videos that you can share. And the cool thing about these testimonial videos is that they come in a branded video player. And you can see your branding right here on this one. It's applied right at the bottom of the video so that the whole time they're looking at it, they're looking at you. It's ready to share. All you got to do is click the share button, and there's a contact form so that people can get back in touch with you. I tell people share one of these every weekend. There's 7 of them in there. That gives you a 7-week rotation of marketing. And you can see my branding here on this one. All I got to do is click the share link underneath. I'm going to click the Facebook link, and that's going to open up my Facebook share. All I got to do is put some call to action copy at the top, and I'll show you how to get that so you don't even have to think that up. And then you just hit the post button, and away it goes into your social media timeline. It's video. It's going to stop people in their tracks and drive them right back to you because it answers the #1 question that a home buyer has, which is, how am I going to get a bigger down payment? So that's it. And as you guys know, you can boost that post and get it in front of all kinds of people that don't even follow your page. Inside your portal, there is a marketing kit with a page that corresponds to every one of those 7 videos. Grab that page that corresponds to the video that you want to share, steal the copy off that page, put it at the top of your post, and hit the post button. We've pre-written the call to action copy for all of these videos. There's like 4 versions of it for each video, so you can reuse this video a bunch of times, never say the same thing on your post. So it's pretty cool, makes marketing really, really easy with some very powerful assets. Easy to get one of these portals, just go to realtor.homefundit.com. Again, you're just going to put in your name, email, pick a password, put in some information about your company, pick a vanity URL, upload your logo and your picture, write a little about me statement, and then select the loan officer that you work with, and that's what binds the loan officer to this portal. And then last thing you got to do when you're setting up is decide if you want to do one of those matching pledges. I totally recommend it if you're in one of the states that allows you to help with closing costs. And again, you can cap it at any amount that you want. Once you get some campaigns up and running, no matter how long these campaigns run, they're going to hear from you every single week with your branding on it. It's going to give them an update on your campaign status. So loan officer gets them late Friday night, realtor gets them late Friday night, customer gets them late Friday night. Just kind of a quick recap of how the campaign went. So it allows you to stay in front of campaigns even if they run long. The average duration on a HomeFundIt campaign is approaching 4 months right now, and that's an average. That means that we're closing campaigns routinely that are 1 year old, 2 years old. We have a lot that are shorter, of course, too, but the average climbs every single quarter. We see a longer and longer duration on these campaigns because people are starting them earlier so that they get more donors, more donations, and they put more people in their pipeline that way. And anytime something happens on a campaign, of course, there's a trigger email that goes out that says somebody just shared, shopped, donated, etc. Okay, get one of these at realtor.homefundit.com. 3 or 4 or 5 minutes and you'll be done. Loan officers, there's a Domo report where you can track your campaign. So go dig around in Domo and you will see that campaign tracker report there. Loan officers, you already have your own page. It's already set up. It's in the product section of your website. So click on loan products And then on that HomeFundIt page, when you find HomeFundIt, you will see a button. That button will start a HomeFundIt campaign that's branded just to the loan officer, of course. We don't know who the realtor is yet. We can add the realtor later. The customer can add the realtor later. So if they're not working with a real estate agent yet, and again, if you're starting really, really early, that's quite likely, go ahead and start them right here, and that'll be branded with just your branding and an empty spot for the real estate agent that can be added later. Strategy 2 is huge. Weddings and Wedding Expo, we just had a big meeting with all of the Wedding Expo LOs that had done one in 2024 yesterday, and got some more great feedback from everybody. And here's the stats. 65% of people getting married will buy a house within 48 months together. That is an amazing target audience, right? The other thing that's amazing, we just had a meeting with a wedding planner this week. Most weddings are now considering doing cash funds. The number is up to 40%, but it's climbing rapidly. The world of traditional registries is kind of behind us. Those are the days when people needed stuff. These are the days when people don't need stuff. What they need is money for a house. So cash funds are huge. And you've got a bunch of home buyers. And the pitch is really simple. If you stick to this pitch, it works. Let your wedding guests help you with your down payment and get a 2-to-1 match up to $2,000. And it stops people in their tracks. They get it. They want to buy a house later, just not right now. But when they see the wedding guest help with money, it all comes together for them very fast. In fact, one of the pieces of feedback from our meeting yesterday was that the parents who often accompany young people to these bridal expos get it even faster, which is sort of an interesting observation. Maybe because they're homeowners already and they know how tough it is for young people to get started these days. We position ourselves as an anti-registry. Do not use the word registry. This isn't a registry. It doesn't go with registries. You shouldn't put it on registries because that's a place where you send people to buy you gifts. We're over here as HomeFundIt. It's an easy sell. We have a huge amount of marketing support. There's a best practices kit for expos if you're doing an expo. People are putting QR codes from their Save the Date announcement pointing to their HomeFundIt page saying, hey, instead of a registry, we're doing HomeFundIt because we'd like to buy a house after we get married. Almost said graduate there. Also on their wedding invitation, we see QR codes on the tables at the receptions. It's kind of fun. People are giving right from the tables. If you do a wedding expo, talk to us because we've got a whole specialty vertical there. It's got marketing materials, as you can see in the upper right-hand corner. And we've figured out how to get people to the table and pitch and all that stuff. So it's fantastic. Typically, they're coming away with 25 to 50 HomeFundIt campaigns and somewhere between 500 and 1,000 leads coming out of these. And in terms of warm leads, somewhere between 50 and 100 warm leads off a sign-up sheet saying, I want to do this or work with you. So they're very powerful. In fact, the reason it's so powerful is because you have alignment. If you do wedding expos without HomeFundIt, you're out of alignment because you're selling a house and they're shopping for a cake. With HomeFundIt, you become part of the wedding. You become the mechanism by which they're raising funds for a house, and the QR code is on the things like the wedding invitation and the save the date announcement. So very powerful alignment. All of a sudden, you're selling what they can buy. When you go to a wedding expo and you position it like this, it really works. So it's been a really hot segment here all of a sudden. Strategy 3, next gen buyer. You know, today when you're meeting with an older customer, let's say that has kids that are, coming up, finishing college, starting their first job, the traditional pitch is call me when your kids are ready to buy a house, right? You want to be the agent, you want to be the loan officer when that day comes. Now with HomeFundIt, you can say, let's get started. Let's get started today. You're looking at the photo at the top here is a young woman who is a junior at Clemson. Her dad, the guy in the purple shirt here, happens to be a real estate agent, owns Gray Fox Realty out in Nashville. He had heard about it, just like you're hearing about it today, went home. His daughter was home for a vacation, and he told her about it. She said, that sounds cool. I do want to buy a house after I graduate. Let's get that set up. She puts a QR code in her graduation announcement, tells all the people she sends a graduation announcement to, till I got the job, I got the house, or I got the degree. What I need is a house, and my goal is to buy a house after graduating. If you're going to send me anything, I'd love a little help with my HomeFundIt campaign. And by the way, my lender's matching 2-to-1. She had a house by November after graduating. So very powerful example of how the older generation can inform their kids, hey, there's this tool, right, that can help you buy a house sooner, and the whole family can jump in and help with generational wealth building. So great strategy. If you've got past clients who have kids that are approaching home buying age, give that some consideration. Loan officers, we have a report in Domo called the Next Gen Target. Go find it, because in there is all your past loans, and over on the right side in green is the ages of the dependents on those loans that are approaching home buying years. That's your call list. Go down that list, have a conversation, introduce those past clients to HomeFundIt and say, hey, this would be perfect for helping your kids buy a house sooner. Done, right? So this is a great call strategy right here. Reach out to those past clients, many of whom are not monetizable anymore, right? They're not moving or anything. They're not refinancing because they're in at 3.5%. So you can still generate income off those folks by reaching out to them and telling them about HomeFundIt. Strategy 4, buyers needing time. This is the big wide strategy that we kind of referred to at the beginning. These are folks who are on the sidelines. Remember, there are 10 of them on the sidelines for every one that's in the marketplace today for all kinds of reasons, right? They can't find what they're looking for. They're waiting for life to get to the point where it's appropriate to buy a house. Maybe they have had credit issues or been turned down for mortgage in the past. Most agents, loan officers, don't know what to do with these folks, but you do. You can put them in a HomeFundIt campaign. I guarantee you every one of them is going to need a bigger down payment. They all have to jump over the down payment hurdle. You can pop them into your pipeline today. And along the way, many folks realize, hey, wow, I don't need to save 20%. I can actually get started now because there's a low down payment program that can get me in the market today instead of waiting for another year till I have a bigger down payment. So just by way of starting to work with some of these folks early, you can help them be ready sooner on a number of levels. So strategy 4, the big wide strategy, which is all these folks that are standing around on the sidelines that your competitors won't touch. Strategy 5, renovation. Today we have aging inventory and we have low inventory out there today in terms of home inventory. And couple that with the fact that first-time buyers kind of want stuff that's fixed up generally. But with a fantastic renovation loan team like we have here at CMG, I think it's the best in the business. We can make that fixer-upper a real possibility for some people. And you couple that with HomeFundIt, which is what we can do, you can create a really strong campaign story that goes something like this. We couldn't find what we were looking for, but we found this old fixer-upper. We've got a HomeFundIt campaign, our lenders matching 2-to-1, our real estate agents matching 1-to-1, and we've got a renovation loan team ready to go. We need a little bit of help with the down payment to get this started. And it can become their dream home, right? So if you've got a couple who's interested in taking on something like this, I think HomeFundIt can make that a really, really effective sales pitch because it gives them the opportunity to really create this sort of HGTV story out of their home purchase. So give that strategy some consideration. Strategy 6 is companies. If you've got an organization in your area that you know that would like to help their people with home ownership, we've got a page that they can set up where they can host HomeFundIt campaigns. The one at the top is probably our best example. It's a company called Hamra. They've actually got 3 portals, probably 60 campaigns running at any given time. They're kicking in up to $2,500 towards the down payment for their employees. They have about 20,000 employees at Wendy's, Panera, and Noodles & Company restaurants that they own. They're a giant franchisor. All through the Midwest and Northeast, if you're in one of those areas, you're probably at a Hamra restaurant when you go to one of those. They're getting R2000. They're generally getting dollars from Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae, 3% down payment program, gift money from their family and friends. In many cases, they're using our Borrow Smart program. So it's a fantastic way to stack a lot of benefits together with the corporation who's helping. And if you've got an organization that wants to do something like this, let me know. We can sit down with them, walk them through the portal, show them how it works, and help them get that set up. It's very, very easy to do. The key is in the follow-up. Our follow-up with Hammer is quarterly home buyer presentations for all their employees. We do a giant webinar every quarter, and it introduces their, in many cases, these are lower paid employees, how to buy a house, right? So it gives you access to a large pool of buyers. We do it with educational organizations, We have hospital chains that use these. We have builders that use these. Some of our biggest builder partners have HomeFundIt portals. So if you're interested in something like this, let me know. By the way, wedding providers at wedding expos have turned out to be a pretty good target as well. You're surrounded by customers as well as potential business partners like a wedding planner. I mean, that was one of our meetings earlier this week. We have a wedding planner setting one of these up. So today, to kind of summarize here, when you're meeting with a buyer today, they're typically at the end of this long journey, right, of getting ready to buy a house. They've been saving and saving and getting ready. But with HomeFundIt, they don't have to be ready. You just have to want to buy a house someday, just not right now, maybe later. So set up HomeFundIt. It helps that person accelerate the process of putting together a bigger down payment. You've won that buyer way earlier than your competition. In fact, you're taking a deal off the table that your competitors can no longer have because they're in your pipeline. They're productively working with you. This is not just sending them an email every week saying, here's the houses for sale, right? This is, or news or things like that. This is actually helping them raise a bigger down payment. So you're engaging productively with a customer way earlier than you normally would. I've been in this business for almost 25 years now, and I've never seen a tool this competitive in terms of allowing a loan officer or real estate agent to go out, look for folks who will make good homeowners someday and start working with that person, engage with that person in a really meaningful way. The number one thing they have to figure out how to do is get enough cash for a down payment. They all have to figure that out. Some of them may have good credit, some of them may not, but they all have to come up with a bigger down payment. This is the way, right? Short of getting a raise or winning the lottery, this is the way, and you're helping them make it really easy to do. And along the way, a lot of times they find out that there's a low down payment program that can help them pull the trigger earlier than they thought. 40% of people out there still think you need 20% down to buy a house. So that means 40% of the people you're putting in HomeFundIt will go, wait a second, I don't need to save 20%. So let's get going, right? So you've just brought somebody to the water even sooner. So it's very, very important to kind of engage with these people earlier. And that means for you, identify these people earlier. So all it boils down to getting them on these campaign pages. So for you, can help you lock in those long range buyers, can help your clients speed up the process. And for you, it generates more referral value when you give your buyer time to assemble those networks of donors. For your clients, it's a game changer. You've taken the friction out of down payment gifting. All of a sudden, you've unleashed all the possibilities that can hold, right? That's the important part about HomeFundIt. You've moved the process online. You've gotten rid of this who can give and who can't give. Anybody can give with HomeFundIt. If you help your buyer understand the power that it holds, then they will go out and do something with it. They want a house pretty bad. So if you help them understand what power you've given them, they're going to use it. So in the chat, I put a link to a starter kit. So scroll up the chat a couple inches or two, and you will see a link to the HomeFundIt starter kit. It's a zip file. Download that, unpack it, and there's a cheat sheet in there that's pretty cool. It's got a summary of the program and a whole bunch of links. It's got an FAQ document, some quick start flyers, and we can always get co-brandable flyers on Surefire. And for you guys, the next steps are, if you're a real estate agent, make sure you're setting up a portal, realtor.homefundit.com. All you're going to need, again, is your picture and your logo. And again, every first-time buyer discussion, finding those prospective buyers, letting them know we've got this online down payment gifting process where anybody can give, and unleashing that power is really important. And the timing of that is critical for you. If you want the frosting on the cake, if you want those referrals, you got to start these things early. If you start them late, I guarantee you won't get that. If you start them early, I guarantee you will get that. And it's a retraining for all of us, right? We're used to working on the people we think we can help, right? So retrain yourself to identify those future buyers. They're the kids of the people you've done business with in the past. They're the renters that you know that want to be homeowners someday. The people finishing college, starting their first job. You bump into those people. They're out there. They're at the holidays. You're going to run into tons of those folks. Talk about HomeFundIt to them. That's the key difference. You don't have to wait for them to be ready. That's not important. The important thing is that they get started. And shout about it. Little things like posting those testimonial videos or updating your signature block with a link to your portal. Little things like that can help improve the presence of HomeFundIt and drive those conversations. try to be here every Friday. I'm going to take a couple of weeks here and take a break over the holidays, and we'll be back in January with more training webinars. I think we have 4 or 5 scheduled for January. I do tons of dedicated trainings. I did a couple this week for branches, real estate offices. So if you've got a group that wants to hear this on a dedicated call, anytime, just give me a call and we will get that set up. Well, I think that's it for HomeFundIt training wise. If you have questions, put those in the chat and I will do my best to see if we can get those answered. Let me see what's in there. Okay, what if I'm licensed in 2 states? Do I need 2 separate accounts due to LOs in 2 separate states? Generally, it's a one-to-one relationship between the loan officer and the real estate agent. So whichever loan officer you're working with, select them in there. You can have 2 portals if you're a real estate agent. If you want to have one, you have to have different logins, of course. But you could set up multiple portals and multiple LOs. But it's a one-to-one relationship between the real estate agent and the loan officer on those portals. Hope that helps. Can this be applied to any type of home, single family, multi? This is for single family primary residence. That's the limit on the HomeFundIt program. Single family primary. Is there a cap on how much can be raised? No cap on how much can be raised. It's $5,000 per donor, which by the way is below the federal gifts tax exclusion. So there's no taxes either direction on this. You can't take a tax deduction when you're giving because it's not to a 501c3. It's a person. And if you're the recipient of the money, it's below the federal gifts tax exclusion level of, I think, $15,000. So at $5,000, those gifts are not taxable to you. They're just a gift. So collect as much as you can. 5,000. We see a lot of 5s coming in from mom, dad, each give 5, and then grandparents each give 5. And we see a lot of campaigns roll kind of like that. Let me see here. I'm reading down the questions here. Is there a limit to how much the client can raise via UpIt rebates? No. So if you shop like crazy and you had all kinds of people using UpIt, there's no limit to how much you can raise on UpIt. UpIt is applied at the end, along with the 2-to-1 match towards closing costs on the UpIt rebates. Right now, by the way, on UpIt, it's 10-to-1 match is what we're giving through the end of the year. I think it's through the 26th, 25th or 26th. And so if they're shopping on UpIt right now, they're cleaning up on the closing costs. So that's kind of cool. We do that every year, Black Friday deal. Lender match and realtor participation can only go towards closing costs and not down payment. That is correct. Those realtor, loan officer, and seller are only able to help with closing costs. HomeFundIt dollars, the gift dollars that they're raising from family and friends, can go to either. The 99% of course, goes to the down payment usually. But once in a while, if someone has an overage, it can go to buy down the rate, offset closing costs, things like that. What happens to the money if they don't buy a home? Ding, ding, ding. That's the #1 question. You got it. So if they don't buy a home, first thing to remember is it's their money. So they're collecting it. Their family and their friends are giving it to them. By the way, you cannot self-donate. You can't give to your own campaign. That is not allowed. It says that as you're donating. This is not me. You have to certify that it's not you. We do check. It's not a gift when you're giving yourself money. So it has to be from someone else. And if you decide not to buy a house, you can take it and go to Vegas with it if you want to. You just hit the ACH button, it goes in your bank account, and that's it, you're done. We almost never see that, though. It's very rare that once people start asking family and friends or telling family and friends about HomeFundIt and they get money in, they generally go through with the home buying process. Even if they get turned down, the offer gets turned down, or the loan gets turned down for some reason, they have to rebuild the loan. They usually just dust themselves off and keep going. It's pretty rare that people exit. In fact, HomeFundIt, I would say, is probably a really good retention tool when you think about it. They're collecting funds on this platform, and it's going to go to a 2-to-1 match. They rarely leave. Once in a while, we do see what we call an involuntary exit, which would be like a divorce, a disaster, a cross-country move that they totally didn't expect, and they have no idea where or when they're going to buy. We can actually reverse the gifts in those cases and send them back to the credit cards. So that occasionally will happen, but it's pretty rare that we see people just flat out exit and not close. But again, it's their money. Of course, you don't get the 2,000, you don't get the up-it rebate funds, and you don't get the the matching and all that stuff. So unless the LO is licensed in both states, they probably can do an internal referral within CMG. Yeah. So same thing with the real estate agents. If you're working with somebody where you're not licensed, you would just do an internal referral within your company, just the way you do it today. HomeFundIt doesn't get in the way of anything really. It just goes along. Did you say there is seasoning on Fannie but not Freddie? That is correct. There is seasoning on all loans that are not Freddie. So Fannie, seasoning on FHA, VA, USDA, jumbo, all-in-one, non-QM, and our Chase and Citi CRA relationships require seasoning as well. If you're doing a Freddie deal, Freddie conventional, Home Possible, Choice Renovation, those are all Freddie. No seasoning on those. Probably works out to about 40-45% of our business actually, because people kind of lean Freddie on this program because there's no seasoning. It's really easy. So go that way if you can, but if you can't, just make sure you're starting really early. That's the important thing, start early. And again, as we've been saying, it's really good to start early because that allows your buyer the time to line up those donors that you want. What happens if they decide not to buy a home after raising money? I think I got that one, but again, it's their money. They can pull it and take off with it. Rarely happens, but it has happened, just not very often. We probably see more involuntary exits than voluntary exits, frankly. What if the borrower decides for some reason to work with another lender at some point? Do they still have access to the funds? Yeah, as I've been saying, it's their money. If they really decided they had to go work with a different lender for some reason, they could hit the ACH button and dump the funds into their bank account. Now, again, that's going to potentially cause a little bit of a problem because they would have a big deposit landing in their bank account coming in from CMG. They're going to have to let those funds season again. So again, that's another reason we're a good retention tool, is because the funds, coming in have to become buyer funds, or they have to end up getting excluded. So make sure that your buyer understands how that works. It is their money, but again, when they leave, you have to make sure that they do it right. Does the up-it spending have to be done online? Yes, because that's the only way we know that the transaction actually occurred. If you walked into the physical store, we would have no way of knowing that you spent the money there. So you have to click in through the campaign page and start that shopping trip, or use the Chrome extension, which if you have that installed, you can skip the campaign page entry, just go straight to the online store, and it'll automatically link it for you because it's pre-linked then. What happens to VA limits? No change to VA limits on the program. What a lot of people are doing with VA actually is they're raising gift funds for offsetting the VA funding fee. So that, there's 2 tiers on that, and you can offset that. So that's pretty cool. We do see a lot of VA loans every month on HomeFundIt. Thank you and happy holidays. Happy holidays to you guys as well. What is seasoning? Good question. So seasoning technically is creating buyer funds. So you are putting in a deposit into someone's account that's not their regular income. It's just money that's landing in their account. If you do that such that the money lands on the bank statements that you're turning in, the underwriter's going to look at it and say, what's that? You don't want that to happen, because that big chunk of money would end up getting excluded, because the underwriter's going to say, well, that might be a loan from somebody, right? A side loan. So they want to exclude funds that they can't source as a gift. Because the money coming in says CMG on it, it's coming in from our HomeFundIt program, that's not a gift that the underwriter's going to find a source for, right? It's an inbound deposit, and they can't look at it and say, well, that money came from Aunt Mabel, right, or whoever. So you want to make sure that you season those funds by having that inbound deposit happen way before those statements, right? So if you have to turn in 2 bank statements, 60 days, you want to be in front of those 2 bank statements. So we're talking 75 days in general on average for full seasoning on those. Now, with FHA, some of the AUS findings will only call for 1 bank statement. that means you can push that seasoning down to like 45 days on those. So it can be a little bit less, but you want to make sure that you do it ahead of that so that you get those funds in as buyer funds. If you don't have time to season again, as I said earlier, you can't drop them into the transaction because they're going to get excluded or it'll cause all kinds of pain. Make sure they just save the funds until afterwards and they can ACH them afterwards. So there you go. Donors will get a receipt. That is a question here. Will donors get a receipt? Yeah, as they go through, they actually, on any donation that's larger than $500, there's going to be a DocuSign donation. Basically, they go through and actually sign an e-gift letter, and when they click that, they'll get a confirmation of it, and that e-gift letter is stored in the background automatically. It's pretty easy. It's just a couple of clicks. Okay, a lot of good questions today. Thanks, guys. This is great. You guys are, sometimes I go through this presentation and there's like one question. So here you guys are on fire. This is great. Okay, well, I think we're running out of questions, so that's good. Let me check the Q&A panel because sometimes there's one or two hiding over there. No questions over there. Okay, it's all in chat. Good. I record this. I like to put this up sometime next week. I'll probably have this on our shared site. You'll see that. You can also see it sometimes in Think It Hub. There's usually a recording. And certainly I can send you guys recordings or links to the recording if you need. And again, try to do this about every week. Last minute question came in. Is this available in all 50 states? Yes. And Guam. We just rolled out Guam, which is exciting. By the way, if you're in one of the states where we're doing Community One, our special purpose credit program, which is 2% up to $6,000 in majority minority census tracts, you can stack HomeFundIt with that. If you're getting a 2% grant, that leaves you with 1% down to come up with. You can crowdfund that on HomeFundIt and have no money to put up for a house. So if you're doing Community One, definitely check out doing HomeFundIt with it, because it's a great way to go. You can source that last 1% using HomeFundIt from your friends. Where are we not allowed to use? Who's not allowed to use this? It's only CMG Retail and our joint venture partners on this. CMG and our joint venture partners. And all real estate agents. So we're excited because we work with, I think, 6,000 real estate agents now have portals and climbing. So it's exciting. Okay, I'll let you guys go. Thanks for being on the call today. Go out and make it a great and safe weekend. Have a wonderful, happy holidays. Merry Christmas, everyone. And we'll see you out there on the HomeFundIt trail.